It's time to look in the mirror, America. Do you like what you see?
I keep referring to Obama as the magic Negro.
Do you like what you see now?
Well, suck on this.
It's just a mirror, America.
Shared sacrifice by everybody.
What could it do to you except reflect your image?
I did nothing wrong at the Minneapolis airport.
The Majority Report.
Far more credible to me than PBS and Frontline.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
If I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Tuesday, Election Day, November 7th, 2017. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, author Dave Neiwert on Alt America, the rise of the radical right in the age of Trump. Meanwhile, like I say, today is Election Day. Huge implications for the race for governor in Virginia. Possibly some pickups on the state delegate side. I'm not going to take over that state house, but super important race for governor there. In Washington State, one special election for a state senator could turn the entire West Coast blue. Also New Jersey, Maine, some in New York. Across the country, some important elections we'll talk about. Meanwhile, Wilbur Ross, financial ties to Putin's family revealed in the Paradise Papers, which expose international tax-evading oligarchs. And speaking of which, Robert Mercer's dealings exposed in those papers, how he funded Steve Bannon's 2016 electoral efforts. Meanwhile, Carter Page's testimony is released, and he's nuts. And in trouble.
I don't know.
And I think he's also been made broke by his legal fees.
Do you know Chris Hayes?
Also on the program today, it's November. So you know what that means? We're nearing December. So you know what that means? We're going to be dealing with a possible government shutdown, as is the norm now in these days. Meanwhile, is Saudi Arabia leading a war effort against Iran? Is that in the offing? All this and more, and then 45 minutes of talking about the minutia of the DNC. All that and more on today's program.
Yeah, there's
ladies.
a regional war in the Middle East. The whole world's coming apart. But anyways, did you hear about a regional bylaw that was pushed through to help my wife in 2014? We ought to spend a week talking about that and nothing else. No DNC on my show. I was making that announcement.
I was speaking to Guy Lawson, who we got to get back on a Friday, one of these Fridays, and he's like, God, man, I was reading this piece. I'm not going to say, I'm reading this piece by this guy, and I'm like, what? How myopic is this? Are you really writing an entire piece about this with what's going on? That stuff is like, and I said, yeah, right now it's all like, it is the whole sort of left internet, it seems like, or at least Twitter, is it's like two bald guys fighting over a comb. It really is just sort of the most insignificant and trivial sort of, but nevertheless, we will spend 2.5 hours in the fun half talking about it. I'm going to give you a breakdown of these races. Look, the bottom line is go out and vote. But Virginia is looking, right now, it's early. It's 12 noon. Right now, Virginia's looking pretty good. But go out. We'll have more of that in the fun half. But make sure you run. And what's happening in Washington State is going to be pretty amazing. There's a state Senate seat, special election. This will turn the state Senate, if the Democrat wins, for the Democrats, which will mean that Democrats will control all aspects of government in California, Washington, and Oregon. And they're already meeting. The governors are already meeting, talking about what they can do to basically just create a region of the country that is going to pursue progressive policies. Climate, healthcare, immigration, a whole set of issues that we will talk about. So I hope you're well rested. But if you're not, maybe part of the problem is your sheets. They just turn the heat on in my building. And when you live in an apartment building like ours, you don't really get much of a choice with the heat. You can turn the dial, but we're in a line where apparently the boiler's below us, so it's super hot. So it's actually returned to sheet only season for us in our house. And fortunately now we have our Brooklinen sheets. Brooklinen.com. You can get high quality sheets and bedding and without the luxury retail prices. And they feel good, folks. They're beautiful sheets. They cut out the unnecessary markups, all the retail licensing fees, the manufacturing waste, and they offer high-end designs and exceptional savings across their entire collection. They were named winner of the best online bedding category by Good Housekeeping. These things are for real, folks. They got versatile colors, patterns. You can mix and match. You complement any decor. This is this is luxury bedding, completely underpriced. You have to try these sheets today, folks. And here's the beauty of it. I tell you, I love my Brooklinen sheets. You try these sheets. I know you're going to love them too. Brooklinen.com has an exclusive offer just for my listeners. You get $20 off and free shipping using the promo code MAJORITY at brooklinen.com. $20 off and free shipping. Use the promo code MAJORITY at brooklinen.com. In fact, Brooklinen is so confident that you're going to love your new sheets. They offer a 60-night risk-free satisfaction guarantee and a lifetime warranty on all their sheets and comforters. There's no reason not to give these sheets a try for yourself or as a gift this holiday season. This is actually great gifts for your kids, for your folks. You can get this from my mom. Give the gift of luxury sheets. The only way to get $20 off and free shipping is to use the promo code MAJORITY at brooklinen.com. That's Brooklinen, BROOKLINEN.com, promo code MAJORITY. Brooklinen, these are the best sheets ever. So check those out. Meanwhile, I was also talking to Guy about how I want to basically stay in my apartment all the time now. I don't even want to go outside anymore.
Inspiring.
Yeah. Super inspiring. But I'm here. But now I don't want to leave the office. That's basically it.
Tell us about it.
Well, the beauty is I don't have to now, even if I have to mail something. You can avoid the hassle of leaving your office or your home and mail everything from postcards to envelopes to packages, domestic or international, with Stamps.com. Stamps.com lets you buy and print official U.S. postage for any letter, any package, any class of mail using your own computer and printer. This is a one-stop shopping experience here. Doesn't matter. You got a postcard, whatever. You click, print, mail, you're done. Stamps.com never closes. You can print postage for letters or packages at your convenience 24/7. Kid wakes you up at 5 in the morning because he's peed his bed. You put him back to sleep. Then you print out some stamps and mail your letter so you don't forget it the next morning. Plus, they send you a digital scale that automatically calculates exact postage, help you decide the best class of mail your needs. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you buying 2 DVDs from the Seder collection or 3 at PilotSeasonDVDs.com? If it's 3, I don't know how much that weighs, but I put it on my scale and now I know. You even get discounts you can't get at the post office. Stamps.com brings all the services of the U.S. Postal Service right to your fingertips. Right now, you too can enjoy Stamps.com service with a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus postage and a digital scale without long-term commitments. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in Majority Report. That's Stamps.com, enter Majority Report. Stamps.com, never have to leave where you are again. Lastly, folks, if you're an adult, especially one with kids, you know you need life insurance. This was when Milo was born. For like a year or two, we just had this sort of, I felt like there was like this sword of Damocles over my head that we hadn't bought life insurance yet. The sense of relief is tremendous. But it's easy to put it off. Shopping for life insurance, it's confusing. For me, even in into my 30s, I was basically just like a little child. I had no idea how to deal with it. I had no idea. Policy Genius lets you compare life insurance from top providers online. It takes as little as 5 minutes. If you're busy, 1 minute per day for 5 days. It's super easy. I checked this out. I had already bought my term insurance, okay? Like I say, when Milo was born. But I went through the process on Policy Genius to check it out. Super easy. You find a policy you like. You want to know more, you can talk to one of their licensed experts. But if you're just browsing, you don't have to talk to anybody. You can browse away. And they don't just do life insurance. You can get disability insurance, renter's insurance, pet insurance, compare health insurance. Check it out, folks. I've said before, I've recommend term life insurance just as I did a lot of reading on it. You get it for, past the time maybe the kids are going to college or, set them up. But some people get whole life insurance. But term, easy thing to do. You know how much you're going to pay, for how long you're going to pay it. And if anything happens during that time, your family, your kids are taken care of. If you need life insurance, but you've been putting it off, try Policy Genius. You can compare life insurance online on your own terms in your own time. PolicyGenius.com, because you should only be forced to speak to an agent if you've committed a federal crime. Speaking of which, we will also be talking in the fun half about Carter Page's testimony.
Yeah, there were emails. But, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I go to Russia, but there are other people. What was your question? Interview? Yes, I would like to, yeah. In
New Jersey right now, there is apparently one of the things I think are they voting on this in New Jersey? There are Democrats in the state legislature who want to reduce the number of towns to do away with duplication of service and employment. That would save money for taxpayers, which makes sense based upon maybe town to town. I don't know. Brendan, you're a New Jersey guy, right? Mm-hmm. Too many towns?
Not as bad as New York.
I guess maybe.
Hey, what the fuck do I know? I just make sound sheets. Whoa, Brendan. Don't be so disrespectful.
Well, maybe he's getting a little bit, he's enjoying the final days of Chris Christie, who was out and voting. Is that his wife behind him?
Yep.
She really enjoys how much of an a-hole this guy is. Here he is.
Turns it on, doesn't he? Doesn't it, Mrs. Christie?
A local woman speaks to his the soon-to-be former governor, the least popular governor, I believe, in the country, maybe the world, and he wants to remind New Jersey voters why they hate him so much.
Really happy day for us. Anything else? Sure, ma'am. Why not?
Well, I live in Mendham Township.
Yeah,
My
why not?
question to you is, why didn't you merge the borough and the township?
Because I can't.
In 8 years.
Yeah, well, as governor, I can't.
So why didn't you?
I can't.
Well, then why
I don't have the authority to do it.
Republican and you're not going to do anything either?
Well, you know what? You
So
can
that's why I'm
listen.
independent.
You
When did you ever do
listen.
what
Go
you
in and
say
vote.
you're gonna
Go in
do?
and vote for whatever you want. I never said I was going to merge the two towns. I understand. You're so frustrated. And you know what? The easiest thing in the world. The easiest thing in the world is to stand where you stand and stand on the sidelines and critique. And well, you're not, but you're the one here doing the critiquing. So you know what? You want to merge. You live in Mendham Township. You want to merge Mendham Township and Mendham Borough. Run for the township committee. Run for the township committee in Mendham Township and be the voice to do it. No, I know, because that's too hard. It's easier. It's easier to sit here. It's easier to sit here and complain. It's easier.
And I don't have the money like you.
Yeah. Oh, really? I'm sure. Easier to sit here and complain. But you know what? That's the joy of public service. It's serving folks. It's serving folks. Yeah, it's serving folks like you that is really such a unique joy. It really is. You're fabulous.
He's such a dick.
Well, he started off.
That was actually pretty.
He started off with, "Can I ask you a question?" Sure. Why not?
It was like they'd seen each other.
You think
before.
I'm a public servant? Why not? And his wife really. I mean. You've always wondered, like, how would anyone want to stay with someone who's such clearly an a-hole? And she really genuinely seems to appreciate that about him.
You know, the other thing I like, though, is when she's like, I don't have the money like you. And he was kind of, oh, yeah, sure you're not a Wall Street lobbyist. Sure, you're not a Bush bundler. Bullshit, lady. I've seen you lobbying to get rid of derivatives regulations. Don't lie to me.
It's unbelievable. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Dave Neiwert. Later in the program, we'll go over what's happening. But, folks, go vote. We'll be right back.
I was feeling sad and kind of blue. I didn't know what I was gonna do. The communists was coming around. They was in the air, they was on the ground, they was all over. So run down most hurriedly and join the John Burt Society. Got me a secret membership card, went back home to the yard, started looking on the sidewalk, under the hedges. Well, I got up in the morning, looked under my bed. I was looking every place for them gall darn reds. Looked behind the sink and under the floor. Looked in the glove compartment of my car. Couldn't find any. Looked behind the clothes, behind the chair, looking for them reds everywhere. Looked up my chimney hole, even deep down inside my toilet bowl. They got away.
We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. It is a pleasure to welcome back to this program David Neiwert, author of Alt America, Rise of the Radical Right in the Age of Trump. Dave, welcome back to the program.
Always good to be here, Sam.
So, you know, there's a quality to this of, like, you tried to, they pulled me back in, right? Like, you thought you had escaped.
I was going to write a book about humpback whales.
That is not a joke, folks. I mean, because you had written a book about the killer whale, right?
Yeah, and it was really successful. I had a lot of fun selling it.
And I think, you know, I definitely interviewed you back when you were talking about your book about the Minutemen. I think it was, and Hell Followed with Her, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah. And it was a really grueling book to write, and I felt like I needed to take a break, and so I wrote that book that I'd wanted to write for a long time about killer whales. And it was, really kind of a pleasure going out and selling it, and certainly was a pleasure writing it. So, I was getting ready to sort of head off into the sunset with writing about whales, but then Donald Trump came along.
Well, I mean, so let's talk. I want to talk about this. It's an interesting sort of analogy on some level, or could be, in that, I mean, when we talk about the alt-right and we talk about Donald Trump, and I want to get to the concept of your concept of alt America, but is this a phenomena that are we looking at like an ebb and flow? Is this a sort of a new phenomena, or is there antecedents, or is it simply, I mean, like what? Give us, contextualize what we're seeing, because, and I should just remind people, you have been reporting on, some form or another of white nationalism, white supremacy for a couple of decades, right? I mean, you started back in Idaho.
Yeah, actually, I had to deal with them in the late 70s at my very first job when I was a young 21-year-old newspaper editor in this panhandle of Idaho. And of course, we made a lot of mistakes back then. But I started covering them really kind of seriously in the 1990s when they started forming militias out here. And I just stayed on the story because I could see it wasn't going to go away. And it wasn't going away, and they were continuing to spread their influence. So what's really been going on, Sam, has been a building phenomenon. This has been building for years. And Donald Trump just sort of represents its apotheosis. But it's been going on for a long time, and it really picked up a lot of momentum during the Obama years because of the racist backlash against having a black president. I can't attribute it to anything else. And when you look at the dynamics of it, and certainly the rhetoric around it and the belief systems that came bubbling up, I really have no question that in my mind that this has to do with a backlash against, the Obama presidency in many regards. But also just it's bubbling up because really we haven't advanced very far since the 1960s when it comes to civil rights for minorities. And so their anger obviously is starting to come up now because, we still have systemic demographic oppression against people of color, and we still have law enforcement that's wildly out of control when it comes to handling of people of color.
So, I mean, one thing that I think, and I think clearly, right? I mean, and certainly Donald Trump is a function of the backlash. Donald Trump's a claim, at least, and this, I shouldn't say claim, but his political salience, I guess, is a function of Barack Obama, almost, like a one-to-one relationship, right? I mean, it was his birtherism. But more broadly speaking, I just want to just stay on this just for one more moment, because, I mean, look, right? You can see these, and I think it was, her name escapes me, but she wrote a book called White Rage, which shows that you have, our history basically as a country has been a function of black people are emancipated, Reconstruction happens, then there's a backlash to that, and that's where we get all these monuments to Lee and to the Civil War put up, and we see a rise in the KKK, and then we see some of that die down, and then we see a response, and even in Social Security, the New Deal sort of leaves African Americans out, and then we see things like redlining and whatnot. And so there's always this sort of like 2 steps forward, maybe 1 step back type of thing in terms of race relations, maybe a step and a half back. I mean, and right now maybe we're at 1.75 steps back.
Who knows?
But what other factors are at play? I mean, because on one level too, there's like a lot of loss of sort of social cachet by a lot of these white guys.
Right, right. Well, and that's right. There is a certain amount of disenfranchisement that's been going on. A lot of it has to do with just the changing world, and that a lot of guys aren't prepared to change with it. And a lot of people aren't prepared to change with it. And so I think that resistance to change, really a lot of the underlying issues have to do with demographics, the changing demographics across America. The places where Trump most succeeded in the States, we found, were places that were undergoing dramatic demographic shifts. In the Midwest, where suddenly these communities have been seeing lots and lots of Latino workers moving in, even in the middle of the gutting of the economies of those regions, where there's no longer a movie house in these small towns. There's no longer corner drugstores. Everybody's having to drive to Walmart because the economies out in rural America have been so corporatized, and the quality of life has really diminished significantly. And so they're seeing this at the same time. They're experiencing this at the same time that they're seeing these brown faces, and of course they blame them for it. That's part of human nature. And that's what happens when you have demographic shifts like that. And it's not a coincidence. A lot of people like to, one of the myths about hate crimes is that hate crimes occur during economic downturns. And the more we've studied hate crimes, the more we've learned that's just not true, that actually hate crimes increase not when there is an economic downturn. In fact, sometimes they increase during an upturn, but rather they increase during in places where there are dramatic demographic shifts.
So it's not economic. It's more of like a
it's demographic.
It's just a proximity to people who are not white. That's
well, unfamiliarity. I don't know that it's, a lot of these folks will tell you, well, I'm not racist. And of course you hear that all the time. And on the surface, they're not, if you dig deep enough, they do have these sort of buried beliefs that, race imbues certain inevitable characteristics in your character and your intellect. And of course we know that's not true, but that's a very common attitude out there in middle America. And but those folks don't think of racism in those terms. They think of racism as actually actively hating people of other races. And so they'll say, well, I'm not racist, right? But yeah, they really do have a lot of this sort of buried level of racism going on. But that said, they're not terribly malicious about it, and they typically don't consciously actively hate people of other races. It's just that it's new to them, and it's part of this downturn in the quality of their lives.
All right, so let's talk about Alt America, which is a slightly different phenomena, right? Where there's there's sort of, in some ways, that alienation that they feel from people they're seeing for the first time, or living next to for the first time, or having to in some way perceive. It's almost like a perceived insult, right? Like, oh, I've got to press 2 to speak English on the phone or something.
Yeah. Exactly.
That this has led to this sort of seeking like of another narrative, and that's what gets us to Alt America. Tell us about Alt America.
Well, Alt America is this concept that I sort of devised because I'd been, when I started reporting on the militia movement back in the 1990s, one of the things I really noticed right away was that they create this alternative universe for themselves, an epistemological bubble of sorts, where they, can see, they sort of interpret reality through the prism of this belief system they have, which is really turns everything upside down. Left is right and right is wrong, and up is down often. It's really a bizarre universe where, as well in the current state. It's that, Barack Obama was a secret Muslim who actually wasn't a legitimate American citizen, that globalists are conspiring to enslave mankind under a new world order, and that all of the various
that one's
things
true.
that they yeah well it is a they I mean, all you have to do is listen to Alex Jones to get a taste of all the various conspiracy theories. That Hillary Clinton was part of a pedophilia scheme at Ping Pong Pizza, and they were shipping children to a colony on Mars. That kind of stuff.
But what's that about? I mean, why is that gaining credence? Like,
It's
why? Go ahead.
It's about authoritarian personalities. What really is common to all of these folks, especially the people who subscribe to conspiracy theories, is what we call right-wing authoritarian personalities. And there's really been just a huge increase in authoritarianism in America. A lot of it has to do with the spread of right-wing media, such as Fox News, as well as I think a lot of the fear-mongering has gone with it since 9/11, and years and years of conditioning people to be fearful. It forces people, it actually, I think, pushes people into a state of authoritarianism. And authoritarianism is a really distinct, especially right-wing authoritarianism, has really distinct set of characteristics.
Let's talk because I'll say that I think like literally maybe 12 hours after Trump won the election, I dug up my Bob Altemeyer audio book, and I reached out to him. I've not been able to get him, frankly, to come on to the show.
Bob's retired.
Yes, and I'm going to check in with him again to see if I can convince him to do it. But tell us about, because I'm not sure that people use authoritarianism, but right-wing authoritarianism, RWAs, I think he refers to them in his book, and there's also LWAs, left-wing authoritarianism.
Yep.
Break those concepts down to us, because this is the thing that I think people need to understand why, like, there is a personality type that exists. It's almost like you have a latent allergy, and if you're not in an area where, you could be allergic to pollen, but if I'm in a pollen-free environment, you wouldn't know it. But then when you get exposed to the pollen, then the allergy, you exhibit the signs of someone who's allergic to something.
Right. Well, right-wing authoritarianism really revolves around these three behavioral and attitudinal clusters. The first one is what they call authoritarian submission, which is the belief that all people in an properly orderly and smooth running society will submit to the rule of the authoritarian leader, whose instincts are superior to the law, and so on and so forth. And but it has always got to be a legitimate leader, right? The second aspect is, and if you're not a legitimate leader, as in if you're viewed as illegitimate, as Barack Obama was, then you become the subject of the second trait or cluster of right-wing authoritarianism, which is authoritarian aggression. And authoritarian aggression really is directed at anyone who does not properly submit to the authoritarian rule, or is an illegitimate leader, as with Barack Obama, or before him, Bill Clinton. And the third component is conventionalism. It's this view that they represent the real Americans. It's that they are perfectly, actually, secretly the voice of the silent majority, right? And this is, of course, very common with right-wing extremists, but it's also really spread into the mainstream. And
Altemeyer has his studies over the course of 25, 30 years found that 25, if I remember correctly, 25% of North Americans are right-wing authoritarians.
I think it's probably higher now. I think probably that number's got to be higher. I think Trump has actually pushed those numbers quite a bit higher. I think a lot of people are more authoritarian now because of Trump, because they're following him, and it's become a more popular thing. So I would say, if you look at poll numbers, I would say it's probably around 34%. We do know that 61% of Republican voters say there's nothing that Trump could do to make him, make them turned off to him, that they're loyal to him no matter what. And that's a pretty powerful indicator of authoritarianism right there.
I think if you wanted a perfect example of that, Bill Mitchell, that guy on Twitter, is like almost like, honestly, like the sort of a perfect example of what an authoritarian, and we should say authoritarians, they're followers. They're not, we're not talking about the authoritarian Pied Piper. We're talking about authoritarians as a group of people who are basically wandering around looking for that pollen that, brings out their qualities of like, oh, daddy's here now. And go ahead.
Well, and we've had them for generations in this country. It's just that they've never had that singular dynamic figure around whom they could rally before. And Trump has provided them with that. And that's the key thing here, is that the personalities of the authoritarian leaders are actually very distinctly different category. They fall into what we call social dominance orientation personalities, and they're frequently very narcissistic, almost sociopathic.
Can I think who that reminds me of?
You probably know a lot of people who are what we call SDOs, because they often rise to key levels in corporations and in media. So, but when you get that, it's what Altemeyer calls the lethal union. When you get combine these right-wing authoritarians with that SDO personality in a perfect match, as we seem to have here, that you wind up having the trains run on time to the concentration camps. That's the danger. And they are they don't have a lot in common. RWAs aren't necessarily very power hungry, whereas SDOs are. And but the one thing they really have in common is their really shared value is they don't believe in equality. They believe inequality is the natural state of man, and that efforts at achieving equality of opportunity, equality of justice under the law, and so on and so forth are sucker words. These are sucker concepts, and they're not going to fall for it. So that's the thing. That's the one area it's the one thing that they really have in common, and it's also the dividing line ultimately between us and them.
So where does, and I want to just touch on left-wing authoritarians in a moment so that people can just see the juxtaposition and we can acknowledge, this is because this is a clinical state of being. We should remind people, like literally, this is a psychiatric delineation. Where does stuff, like where is the, what does the Venn diagram look like when you're looking at authoritarians, when you're looking at white supremacists, white nationalists, Nazis, what we call the alt-right? Like what does the Venn diagram look like for these different, for fascists? What does the Venn diagram look like for these people? Like where's the overlap? And is it just one big circle?
There's circles inside of the larger circle of authoritarianism, but they are wholly authoritarian. each of those segments that you describe or that you're asking about, I would say each and every one of them is fundamentally authoritarian, or right-wing authoritarian especially.
So Daddy's brought the family together, basically, and they're, some are twins, but they're all basically similar kids in the family, and Daddy's brought them all together. There's some difference, like, should we do this based on fake white supremacy or just genuine white supremacy?
Right.
Or, so just give us a sense of the different flavors, though, of who they are.
Well, so I do use the term the radical right in the subtitle as sort of a generic term for this phenomenon, but it encompasses, very much the traditional far right, including, my neo-Nazi and militia pals, as well as, nativists and who really have a long history as well, Ku Klux Klan, neo-Confederates, and now the much more recent phenomenon of the alt-right, which is basically white nationalism, white male supremacism rewired for the 21st century. But it's a much more complex phenomenon. And I know a lot of people have asked me, well, why don't you just call them Nazis? And I have to explain it's a much more complex phenomenon than that. And it's one of those things like Patriot movement. I mean, really, have you ever met a more seditious bunch of bastards in the Patriot movement, Sam? I mean, think about it. But we call them that anyway. Right. And I just think we kind of have to concede their own labeling. But the point is, as we have pretty
what
much
is the
done
difference
with
between an alt-right and a Nazi?
The alt-right's really they're not all Nazis. I think of Nazis. Have dealt with Nazis over the years, and they have a very specific bandwidth of behavior, including the Hitler worship and the wearing of swastikas and reading Mein Kampf and blah 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 blah. They're very and wanting to wear the uniforms and all those kinds of things. These guys aren't like that. They want to wear polo shirts and go around with tiki torches. And of course they're imitating. These white nationalists are frequently imitating Nazis, but they also are doing these Pepe flags, and they like to use irony, and they're using social media. I mean, it's really rewired to appeal to young men in this century, ages 18 to 30.
So wait, so are Nazis, but I mean, is that the essence? I mean, it sounds to me like what you're saying is that the difference between Nazis and alt-right is just simply like a sense of irony. And that doesn't seem to be the essence of what Nazism is, right? I mean, isn't it like, I mean, isn't there's
a powerful misogynist element here as well that wasn't really explicit in Nazism. It's actually latent. If you read Klaus Teweleit, you know that control of women was really a powerful drive for the Nazis, but it was never really very explicit. Whereas with these guys,
they didn't need to at that time as much, right? I mean, there wasn't. I mean, there was no women's emancipation at that time. It's like, why fix it if it's not broken?
Right, and these guys are just viciously anti-feminist. It's not even. But yeah, so I mean, and some of this is coming out of the video gaming world, as as a lot of one of the origin points for this movement was the Gamergate controversy. So it's more complex, and I'm not comfortable throwing, especially a label like Nazi, like for me operates on a very specific bandwidth. To me, it's not accurate to call them Nazis. So. I call them fascists. I have no problem with that. But a Nazi is something very specific to me.
Okay, and so we should be clear too that if there's a spectrum of like dangerous, of sort of willingness to, I mean, I guess like if they could, in terms of a desire of genocide or of like the distinction's not that. It's really just like because you're academic about this, you want to call it dark blue as opposed to sky blue.
Right.
I mean, is that? I mean, I'm just trying to understand like if there's a taxonomic difference in their danger to society.
Yeah, well, I think that mostly the taxonomic difference is, first of all, like as you point out, they use irony. So they often use this irony as a way of deflecting, the usual ire that they would get. Oh, I'm just being ironic in my racism, and as if there is a dime's worth of difference, right? But it actually has an effect on the broader audience. I mean, you and I might look at that cynically, but to the young audience that they're talking to, it actually does make a difference.
Yes.
So I think that it's really important to be able to attack them on their own turf, and call them out for what they are, which is fascist. But but you also, if you're going to do that, you have to understand what fascism is, right? It is not the marriage of corporatism and the government. Okay, that's a fake quote. That is not what fascism is. Fascism is basically right-wing populism gone metastatic. And it's a very, very different phenomenon than what a lot of people talk about. So it is important to understand fascism if you're going to make that argument, but it's very doable with these guys because they are fundamentally proto-fascist.
Just for the sake of being complete here, just tell us what an LWA, a left-wing authoritarian, is, and then I want to talk about just sort of like what is the response that we should do. But tell us just sort of from a clinical perspective what an LWA is.
Well, you would an LWA would have been, say, an old Soviet communist. Somebody who believes in having a strong that you need to have the power of the people has to be absolute, sort of thing, and they have a very different way of viewing the world, but they are still as our right-wing authoritarians, fundamentally hostile to democratic values, and so yeah, they're it is a different psychology than right-wing authoritarianism, but honestly I can't go into it as deep a detail because I don't understand it as well. But it does exist, and it's mostly not a well. We are starting to see some left-wing authoritarianism popping up. I have been physically assaulted while covering these alt-right rallies out here on the West Coast by black bloc folks who are, what I would call classic left-wing authoritarians. And it's not been fun. So I'm not a fan of them at all. But on the other hand, I'm glad people are out protesting these alt-righters.
People can pick up Altemeyer's book, which explains the psychological this is all clinical stuff that they, University of Manitoba, if I remember correctly, that they studied for years. There's a lot less LWAs than there are RWAs. All right, so what is, at least in North America, where they did their research, what's the solution to this? Because, obviously, all right, Donald Trump, it goes away at one point. By hook or crook, we're not sure. Maybe, let's hope it's not too long. We're not talking about into the 2020s with Donald Trump, which is not, nothing. There's nothing we can count on. Obviously, this psychological condition doesn't go away, but is it going to take a, Donald Trump Jr. or Tom Cotton, or I don't know who it will be, to sort of maintain this sort of happy family of fascists and proto-fascists and white supremacists and all these people who sort of come together, or will it calm down like sort of like, oh, just leave that rash alone and it'll take care of itself?
I do think that these people will not be able to sustain a movement because they're so internally contentious, and a lot of it has to do with the personality types that are attracted to them. They're paranoid, belligerent, angry people, and really some of the most god awful unpleasant people to be around in the world, and so they're always arguing with each other and always falling apart, forming divisive factions and so on and so forth. So yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to sustain themselves for very long, but they are, I'm afraid, going to be able to keep spreading their recruitment if we don't sit up and start recognizing that we are sort of reaching this epistemic crisis in the country. People aren't able. There's a whole segment of people out there who are no longer able, it seems, to distinguish between fantasy and reality. And a lot of the breakdown that we're having along civil lines has to do with that division. The fact that we aren't able to even agree on what's truthful and what's not, what's factual and what's not. It's fake news and what's not. And this is really a product of, in many ways, of the whole Alex Jones and InfoWars and the associated conspiracy mills that have been coming along. It's also a product of the internet and its sort of dehumanizing factor. The ability to dehumanize people is really pronounced on the internet. And finally, I just think a lot of it's just that we're losing touch with a lot of our humanity and our ability to talk to each other. And some of this, there are a lot of reasons for that. But we need to start talking about that and start talking to each other in real ways again. There's no way. I don't think there's a top-down solution to it. I think it has to come from the bottom up.
So what are you suggesting with that last part? I mean, because it seems to me that we have also, I would put in consolidation of the media, right? Like there's no way, frankly, that, I mean, that there's going to be it's not like people can go from, I don't know, the liberal part of Boise and head out into the country and go like, hey guys, just want to come here and tell you, like black people are not as bad as you think they are, or whatever it is.
Yeah,
like,
no, it's not.
And
you'll get beaten up.
Right. There's no, it seems to me like, frankly, like you need to, the only way that happens is if we have some type of, I don't know, fairness doctrine or something that inhibits the concentration of media that is only talking about one narrative.
Right. Well, that's right. The corporatization of media is you're absolutely correct, Sam. In my view, as a guy who started out in newspapers in the 1970s, just the destruction of community newspapers and all the way up to the top of the chain, the complete consolidation of media under corporate rule. And that's, of course, what InfoWars is kind of a reaction against, right? But it's a sick reaction. It's a toxic reaction. And because let's face it, corporate media is totally failing to do its job as guardians of the civil discourse, it's no longer in a newspaper job or a TV journalism job. Is it your concern to be civic-minded, part of, guardians of democratic discourse and open fairness? No, all you're concerned about is your ratings and, your readership. That and your ability. A lot of times it's just. We become so profit-oriented in the dispersal of information that it's really toxified the situation. So we absolutely need. I think media reform is a fundamental step, but I don't know how we can do that except maybe from the bottom up.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I can sit in liberal Brooklyn. And I turn on my radio, and I have access to, Mark Levin and Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and Glenn Beck. And frankly, there's no liberal talk radio on. I mean, I guess people could argue like WNYC, or maybe I can listen to BAI if I want, or something else. But I can't help but have an array of different media. But the fact is, the guy living in Boise, He's got 2 Sinclair media channels. He's got only right-wing radio. I don't even need to go there to know that for a fact. And he turns on Fox. And that dude, it doesn't matter what his neighbor says.
Yep. Yeah. No, because hey, it's on Fox, so that's all they need to know. No, it's terrible. Yeah, my parents actually live in Boise, so yeah, exactly. It's you're precisely right, and it's even worse when you get out there into the country. You get out of those cities, and Boise is a very conservative city as it goes. It's there are a lot of hardworking progressives there, but they're really caught behind the 8 ball, partly because they have been abandoned by the Democratic Party. Let's be really clear about this, that the Democratic Party has a huge role in this, and as well as the funders of these left-wing think tanks and so on and so forth. They're doing nothing to counter this media dominance out there in these rural areas. And you go driving up across the country and let's put on your AM radio, you got it's been this way since the late 1980s, that you had 2 choices: Rush Limbaugh or one of his imitators, or country music. That was it.
And these guys are all they're all just gateways and basically support systems, right, to corral people into this, and they can funnel down. I mean, it's all basically like a funnel sales type of thing. But
yeah.
Well, Dave, I hope you can get to that book on whales, humpback whales, sometime soon. But I think we still need you to hang in there for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I actually liken it to sort of being the sewer maintenance guy. It's not a pleasant job, but somebody's got to do it. So I've been doing it. I got to go crawl through those sewers to get this information to you guys. But, because it is, after a while, it's fairly toxic. And that is why I spend time with whales, actually, is to sort of get personal recovery time in.
And you're are you still blogging over at the Hate Watch site?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm still working for Southern Poverty Law Center. I'm their West Coast correspondent still. And, and there's my cohort out here, actually in Spokane. Bill Moreland has been at it even longer than I. So there's a number of us out here, a number of journalists who are still doing the work.
Well, Dave Neiwert, the book is Alt America, Rise of the Radical Right in the Age of Trump. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, Sam.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break and head into the fun app. Before we do, I think this may be the last week of the survey. Now, I'm not sure. I'm not promising you anything. But this week may be the last week of the survey. Please go to majoritysurvey.com. If you have not yet answered the survey, majoritysurvey.com. This is a survey for us, so it doesn't help us if you do it twice. It hurts us. Other surveys sometimes may be like if we do it for a third party that wants to sort of, let's not get into that. But this is for us. So, and if you are a paid member, or if you are a member that we've worked out a deal with, you answer the member survey. If you are if you listen to the freebie show, so if you just get it off of iTunes, or I don't know why I said it that way, iTunes, this fancy thing called iTunes, and you listen to it. If you just get it, just the free show. Really important for you guys to do this survey too. So head over to majoritysurvey.com. And if you watch it on YouTube, head over there. We have a survey for you as well, majoritysurvey.com. Don't forget, you can always become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. JustCoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. We have those affiliate links at majorityreportkickback.com. And also tonight, TMBS live on your computer. That's what you should have called it.
TMBS live on your computer.
No, I wouldn't have used the computer part, but TMBS live sounds pretty good, right?
I guess.
Tonight, Ben Dixon will be on. He's smart.
Very smart.
And ContraPoints.
Also very
She's smart as well, too. Good filmmaker.
Very good filmmaker.
Michael will also talk about what's going on with Saudi Arabia. Apparently.
Yep.
It's going to be a great war we have with Iran. It's going to be the best. People are going to forget all about Jared, Michael Flynn, and Carter Page. Who's those guys? We're at war.
I love how the Saudis, they're just like, why did Russia do this whole elaborate thing? What you do is you cut a few deals with the son-in-law, and then you plaster his face on a board when he's here. Giant picture of him. Give him a sword. Tell him he's great. Done.
Yeah, it's the sword, the old sword play. It works with.
They always fall for it every time. And also, Nation of Islam Obama is going to address why there wasn't mass Antifa killings last weekend. And
wait a second.
The rescheduling.
What happened to that?
You'll hear tonight.
Weren't we supposed to have all these mass killings by Antifa? Where we were? Wait.
No, I'm telling you, he'll explain tonight.
This is super.
Because what a lot of people didn't get is that Obama was involved in it.
Super disturbing that we didn't have the overthrow of the government and all the other stuff that we were going to see from Antifa. Good job, Antifa. Way to drop the ball again. All right.
Sam, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Explain it tonight on the Michael Brooks Show. Jesus Christ. At least he's not a full-blown devil like you. You know what, Sam?
Oh, come on.
You know what, Sam?
Yes, he is.
You know what, Sam?
He's a full-blown devil.
You know what, Sam?
Full-blown.
Hey, listen up.
The devil
listen to
comes
Fleetwood Mac.
in sheep's clothing,
Listen
buddy.
to Fleetwood Mac and kill yourself. Call back.
Devil comes in sheep's clothing. We're going to take a quick break. Take your phone call at 646-257-3920. Folks, vote. And I think Virginia's looking pretty good, but go out and vote.
Make sure you close the deal. Remember that Steve Bannon quote I read yesterday about the results of that election, and remind that of yourself about the positive lesson that all of the people at Neiwert was talking about, and all of the strategists in the Republican Party that want to keep pushing the dial on this stuff will take from Ed Gillespie winning, and go vote for Northam.
So right now, okay, as of this morning, wow, turnout was 31% in Arlington, which is one of the most Democratic parts of the state. Turnout was at 31%, plus 8% absentees as of noon. Okay? In 2013, turnout was 48.7%. So you presume, I don't know what the distribution is if a lot of people turn out, mostly in the morning. But even if that's the case, they could be looking at a higher turnout in Arlington. We'll see. I mean, it's too early to tell with these things. Who knows? Maybe it starts raining there. Who knows? But it's looking good. But get out there and vote. People need to vote. I don't know how to say that again except for vote. All right, folks. See you in the fun half. Everybody knows you're not a real band unless you've covered that song. Oh my God!
It's not a real genre of
that
music
one really
unless there's
just
a La Poupée.
That really shocked me. That one, I found that one shocking. Let's go to the phones. Calling from a 203 area code. 203 area code. Who's this? Have you voted?
Hey, yes. This is Terry from Park Slope. And yes, I have voted.
All right.
How's it going?
It's going well. I'm glad to hear you voted. What's on your mind, Terry?
Yeah. Well, I've been deputized, you see, Sam. I've been deputized by Dave Rubin.
Okay.
I'm one of the, well, I don't know if you know about us. We're Dave's Defenders. We have a scattering of organizations around the country. I happen to be the New York City affiliate. And I'm just calling to take you to task.
Please tell me this is real.
I'm just calling to take you to task for what I've been hearing you say about Dave Rubin, who is very smart. And, it's been a lot of Tommy rot and applesauce. And, frankly, we're sick of hearing it. And honestly, I think that you and Dave Rubin have a lot more that you agree with than what you disagree with. And I hope one day, you two can get together and hash out your differences. Because,
wait, is this real?
I mean, I don't know how much realer I could possibly make it. I have been deputized by Dave. He can't, interview, can't talk to everybody at once. He's flying around the country talking to Stephen Molyneux, Stephen Crowder. You got Lawrence Southern. I mean, the people around the ideological spectrum. And he can't get to everyone at once, so he deputizes people like me to call out what is mostly poppycock from progressives, and basically answer any questions he might have, and I relay back to him.
Okay. Well, please tell him I am looking forward to our opportunity to speak. You have posseed this well. Actually, this reminds me. I appreciate the call. Thank you. It was a joke, right? I mean, it wasn't serious because I. Okay, I would be totally depressed if I found out that was actually serious and I didn't engage him. If somebody has an idea or a way of chasing down what publisher is printing Dave Rubin's book, that would be helpful to know in advance. And if you happen to know who the publicist is, who's repping his book, because I know Dave is getting an outside publicist because he gets all that Coke money. So why wouldn't you get an outside publicist? So if you have any idea who that might be, please send us an email at majorityreporters@gmail.com. One of my projects is going to be try to make sure that book is not positioned in such a way that makes it seem like anything other than, Ann Coulter's, sort of a
polite nephew.
Yeah, exactly.
But less informed about politics as well.
But not as smart.
Yeah, he's not nearly as smart as Ann Coulter.
No.
My favorite part of Dave Rubin is when he'll say, like, I spend all day thinking about these ideas.
I bet he does. Let's go to the phones. Call from a 210 area code. Who's this?
Good afternoon, Sam. How you doing? It's John from San Antonio.
John from San Antonio. Thank you so much for calling, John. What do you think?
Yeah, in June I called in to support our revolution, endorsed Tom Perriello in the Virginia gubernatorial Democratic primary. Unfortunately, Northam won by 12 points. I vote in every election, so I'm used to voting for candidates who do the least amount of damage. So I want to encourage everybody to go out and vote against Trump and the Republicans who are at every level, who are trying to install a system that favor the wealthy and make income inequality worse. Recent polling in Virginia has been fairly inaccurate. In the 2016 Democratic primary of the gubernatorial race, in the 2014 Mark Warner senatorial race, they were off by 8 points. In the 2013 gubernatorial race, the polls are off by 5 points. Yet in the presidential race, the polling was fairly accurate. Democrats had 543,351 votes in the primary, while Republicans only had 366,274. So that's a pretty large advantage. Perriello beat Northam in the Southwest and the South and the Western part of the state, which are rural areas of the state, and it follows a pattern which happened throughout the country where Bernie Sanders did better in rural areas. And this happens because urban area Democrats who are in the professional class and who aspire to be in the top 20%, who want to benefit or have benefited by trickle-down economics, while 4 out of 5 Americans have lost income in the trickle-down era. Centrist Democrats still dominate the party, and hopefully that'll change come primary time next year.
I mean, I think that's I think the last part of that assessment is true. I don't know. Look, I think there was a lot of people that you were talking about who, and we don't know the numbers. I've seen some reports on this, but they're not huge. They're not super in depth, but there were a significant number of people who voted for Clinton because she thought she was going to be more electable too. So I don't know, like and I would imagine in rural areas you might be dealing with people who less inclined to vote for a woman, perhaps. But I think broadly speaking, yes. The point is that there's still a lot of centrist control of the party. But one of the things, let me ask you this, okay? We've seen the race that Northam has run, John. Not a particularly strong one, it appears. Although, I guess we got to wait and see, what happens in terms of the numbers. It's going to be so hard to get a good read on this, or at least one that is going to be able to be used in this argument. But Northam had Andy Ossoff consultants. There are some really crappy Democratic, like establishment consultants, right? I think their ideology tends to be more centrist and to the right anyways, but they're also just bad at what they do. They're not good at winning elections. You can be a centrist, right? There are two axes here, right? There's an ideological argument, and there's also just simply you got one job to do and you can't do it axis. And they don't necessarily parallel each other. And, this is something that I think is a little bit frustrating for me, and that people sort of, conflate sometimes. Like, I happen to think that in the absence of Bernie Sanders, Martin O'Malley might have had the same ability to beat Donald Trump that Bernie Sanders would, or that Joe Biden would. That, to me, suggests not an ideological thing as much as like sort of campaign style, like sort of performative things, but also maybe just sort of like not hiring bad people, not being snowed by certain BS. And so these are, this is, I mean, I guess I have no way to button this other than saying people need to be conscious of the difference between those two things and not conflate them. You could argue for both. We need better people and people more to the left, but they aren't necessarily, there isn't as much evidence as people seem to claim there is, that certain ideological positions will win in all places. There's definitely evidence that the people who've been running Democratic elections are bad at it. I mean, like, they don't even have the sense necessarily to lie about certain positions. They're just bad at it. They're bad just crunching numbers. They're bad at predicting where voters are. They're bad at suggesting where they need to deploy resources. They're bad at getting, changing the media narrative to them. I mean, they're bad at a bunch of this stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Especially with the Clinton campaign, it was so obvious, right from the beginning. But I mean, one other factor is, you have to look at the negative advertising. I mean, most of the down ballot problems, I think, you have to deal with money, and you talk about this a lot. When you throw a ton of money at a local race, you have a distinct advantage as opposed to on a national level or even on a state senatorial level. That has such a big impact, and that's really going to be hard to overcome. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. But another factor is that people just aren't very good decision makers. I mean, they're just not critical thinkers, and especially in the South and in the Midwest. And so you can throw a ton of negative,
I got to think there's some critical thinkers in these areas. It's just that they don't have access to a different narrative. And,
Nope, that's pretty much the whitest people in the country, Sam. I think you'll find that if devils breathe a little bit of new Dutchland air, they're slightly more intelligent, a little bit less mayo-filled. But if you go to the South and Midwest, oh boy, that's some real fucking stupidity. That's A-level. What, are you sleeping or something, Sam? You don't get it?
I just wanted to see what John had to say to that. John
agrees with it.
Look, hey,
fuck out of here.
We're trying to figure out how to upload an Excel spreadsheet that we got from John, and you might be interested in it. There was a crowdsourced polling that was done by people in the community, and I should read this now. Let's see. Here are the polling results, and we're just trying to figure out how to put it up. It's a spreadsheet, and here's the top line that they gave us. We call ourselves the International Polling Superfecta. We're a coalition of Majority Report supporters who are interested in data analytics. After compiling a poll of the Virginia's governor race from October 30th to November 1st, we have the following results. Northam leads Ed Gillespie 55 to 45%. That's the widest margin I've seen reported. It was collected from
Quinnipiac had 9 points.
Okay. It was collected from 666 Google opinion survey conducted on Android. We weighed the results based on the turnout of different ages from the 2013 governor's election provided by CNN exit poll to compensate for age biases that could be contained in the results. When the results say Democratic, note that it refers to respondents who selected Northam. Republican refers to Gillespie. One final warning, the last governor and Senate election saw Democrats severely underperform their polling. One should keep that in mind when viewing these results. John, I don't know if I can print but if you send me an email, I'll email it to you so you can take a look at it. And we'll find out, I guess, tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with the Google polling, it's extremely inconsistent because, I mean, essentially, from what I've seen, they put out, ads and people respond to them. I mean, and so I don't really know if that's really the best way to poll, but I mean, it's one way. I mean, and we'll see. The results really haven't been that effective. I think there was a 2-point lead in the Google poll that was put out. By
this seems to be
sure
a different one. I don't think this is from like some type of Google opinion survey conducted on Android. I'm not sure what that means, but. But if you send me an email, I'll send you the Excel spreadsheet.
Okay. One other thing about I really enjoy Mike from PA's calls, but when he keeps saying that Trump can win in 2020, and I just want to remind people that Trump is the most unpopular president in the first 9 months of his presidency in modern history. Going back to FDR, and most people just look at the approval rating, but I think a more accurate reflection is the ratio of the favorability to unfavorability, and Trump is at a negative 19.1, and the closest at this point in the presidency is Gerald Ford is at a negative 6.7. Every other presidency is in the positive. The second lowest, besides the people I mentioned, were Clinton at a positive 3.5. And I know people don't like to talk about the 2020 polling, but last Tuesday the public policy polling had 5 Democrats beating Trump by 10 points or more: Biden by 18, Bernie by 15, Booker by 11, Warren by 10, Gillibrand by 10. And Mike called in about a month ago and said Obama's second-term approval rating was about the same as Trump numbers. But, I mean, that was wrong also. It was 38. Trump's approval rating was at 38. Obama was at 42. So, I love his calls. I love his attitude and his policy positions. He's great about that. But, I mean, I just don't understand, the negativity towards not winning elections, because I think that we're in a really good place. Of course I would love to see more progressives, and I'm going to be calling in and talking about our revolution candidates and Justice Democrats, and there's a lot of other people who brand new Congress, a lot of people who are Bernie supporters who haven't been endorsed by those configurations, but I mean, I just think that we've got to be positive, and I'm hoping for some big wins today. And so,
well, some people
hopeful.
Yeah, I am too.
Looks like some white on white crime about to happen. Oh,
John, I appreciate the call, and send us an email. We'll send you that document if we can. We're having trouble getting it out of our thing, but I appreciate it.
Pay-per-view special. White boy political show callers go ham.
Some people get motivated by positivity. Some people get motivated by panic.
I think that I did a piece on this yesterday with the Doug Susnick column. I think there is obviously a path through base motivation that Trump can certainly get reelected with a similar map and lose the popular vote again.
Pose around last time.
I just think that, I don't think that necessarily should be used to depress turnout. It should just be like, we shouldn't also just be coasting on
at this point, I don't know how that would depress turnout.
Well, that's John's concern.
I understand John's concern, but look, we just went through an election where there was a 75 to 85% chance 2 weeks out that Hillary Clinton was going to win. And she lost. She lost by a razor-thin margin.
Fuck you, Bernie.
And so I don't know. I have a feeling that Donald Trump was probably also the lowest, had the lowest approval rating for any major candidate too, I would bet.
Breaking a lot of records.
So,
a lot of records.
It's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yeah, in a certain sense.
I wouldn't get overconfident. Let's put it that way.
I bet Bernie and Comey talked with each other, and they bro-splained how to destroy my election. Say.
All right. Calling from a 704 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Sam. My name's Victor. I'm actually live in Virginia.
Hello, Victor. Did you vote yet?
Yeah, I voted this morning.
Was it crowded? Where in Virginia? Where in Virginia? What part of Virginia?
I live in Chesterfield, it's south of Richmond.
Okay. And
about 20 minutes south.
What did the voter turnout look like? Because we can, I don't know.
It's more than it was more than the primary. The primary, there was pretty much nobody there. But this morning there was a good amount of people there going in and out. Okay. So I'd say that's probably a better sign for Northam. A good mix of people from what I saw.
Good.
And everything. I will say in this area, there are a lot more Republican signs everywhere, basically where I live.
Mm.
But I've actually had a Democratic delegate come to my house multiple times. And I've actually seen them out here more face to face.
That's good.
I haven't seen a Republican delegate at all.
That's good.
So I kind of see that as a good thing in this area. So, I mean, hopefully they will pull it off. I mean, I think they should be all right. And Northam, he's kind of...
Sounds like somebody kept Mook away from everything. They're running a proper campaign.
Exactly.
Yeah. I will say one thing. Unfortunately, we only had one Republican for our county treasurer. We didn't have any Democrats for that. I'm not sure if the treasurer for the county is not a big deal. I will say I wrote in a candidate since I like this show and I like what you guys are doing, just kind of as a protest vote. I wrote in Jimmy Dore's name.
Oh, well, that
I like what he does, and I feel he might be a good treasurer if he wins. I'm not sure if he's going to make it or not, but
I would like to rise to the floor to say, this is a fucking travesty. You should be fucking ashamed. That actually would be awesome.
That would be
if
awesome.
I could get Jimmy Dore to be elected to Congress just so we could sit and
No,
do those
treasurer, county
Well,
treasurer.
going
Let's not
ahead.
get carried away.
Would there be a meeting of I guess there would be. Yeah. I called a meeting of the county
like
treasury
that.
system and say, you're fucking disgusting. Did you
I think
see
that
what
would be
Chris
actually
Hayes
nice
said
for him.
To Susan Sarandon 3 years ago.
I think he'd have to run the numbers to see how it would do for his subscriber base on YouTube before he would accept. But I think he probably appreciates that somewhere.
I didn't write his name, but I wrote in Bruce Wayne. But but yeah, hopefully they do all right, and we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, good luck, Virginia. I appreciate the call.
No problem.
Thanks, man. All right, we'll take one more call, and then I got some clips I want to play here. We got some time. Calling from a 509 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. It's Carter Page.
Carter Page. How are you?
You know, I'm just super innocent, and I'm doing all the shows. I did Hayes, I did Rach, I did Wolf, I did Tap. I did Wendy Williams, Juan Williams, Serena Williams, The View, The Voice. I did Say Yes to the Dress, What Not to Wear, Info Wars, Storage Wars, Cupcake Wars, Cake Boss, Undercover Boss. I did The 5, The 4, 24. I did Real Time, The Real World, Road Rules, Real World Challenge. I did Democracy Now!, David Packman, David Rubin, Chris Lopaco Experience, Joe Rogan Experience. I did Jimmy Dore, Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, and now you. So this is your opportunity to just ask me literally anything. Because go ahead.
Okay.
What do you want to know?
Did you deliver a message?
Look, I didn't meet with any Russians ever in any I mean, I met with them, you know, but I'm not, frankly, I don't really want to get into that right now. I did meet with them. I'm not going to just say that though, because I respect the confidentiality of the Russians who I met with. I mean, I didn't meet with them exactly what I mean to. I don't want to get into it, but I did meet with them. If I did meet with them, it was absolutely nothing, and definitely not in my role with the Trump campaign, which was my role was it was nothing. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Thanks for having me on the show. Okay, thank you.
That was Carter Page, folks, doing the rounds. Total barnstorming. He's been on a lot of different programs, it sounds like.
That is the best Carter Page impression ever.
Oh, my God.
Exactly right. Well, the theories are either that there's the real Carter Page is in Russia in some type of giant mafia villa, and this is just like a poor sap who has steroids in his veins that will shoot into his heart via remote control if he doesn't listen to what the real Carter Page is saying. And then maybe the other thing, I guess, there's also the usual suspect scenario, which is that he acts like such a moron.
Let me read a tweet that I got this morning from Larry Murphy. It goes something like this. Page's Russian counter intel, whose story ends with a low-flying chopper grab off a rooftop, followed by a feat at the Kremlin. And my response, Occam's razor. I would say it's really the most sensible response now is that this guy gets up onto the roof of a building, maybe he climbs up to the top of the Capitol, and, like some type of like Sikorsky helicopter comes up, picks him up, that's supposedly posing as like some type of tourist copter, drops a hook down. He grabs onto it and flies him somehow. He gets to mainland Russia through that helicopter, which has a
and then Mueller
special.
And then Mueller is like looking at his board, and he's taken down Flynn. He's taken down Manafort. He's taken down Kushner. He's a great dogged investigator, but then he realizes that all the patterns reveal Page.
Right. No, he looks up and he's just like, wait a second. Page. He looks at the paper and he realizes Page. And he turns around, and behind Mueller, a picture of who? Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter?
That's where he got the name.
Okay. Maybe.
My name is Carter.
Page.
There's
definitely some aspect of there's a Tiffany angle on this as well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's
maybe
like Tiffany and Carter Page are
the lovers,
or maybe they're the same people. Folks, this morning, Congressman Jim Himes was on Morning Joe, and we've seen now, and we're still going through some of it here, but Carter Page's testimony, 8 hours of testimony, no attorney, because apparently he has expended his resources. This is what has been reported, that he can't afford an attorney anymore. And so he went in to address the Intel Committee without an attorney. And it sounds like it went about as well as you could imagine. There was a apparently he sent an email that said, I'll send you guys a readout soon regarding some incredible insights and outreach I've received from a few Russian legislatures and senior members of the presidential administration here, said Page. He had sent this email to campaign staffers. And he it's in the testimony he revealed who he was referring to. He was referring to two campaign advisors, Tara Dahl and J.D. Gordon, gave the identity of a Russian official. But Page went back and forth, and he was all over the place. Here is Jim Himes characterizing what they heard in this testimony.
Joining us now from Capitol Hill, member of the House Intelligence Committee, Democratic Congressman Jim Himes of Connecticut.
Hey, Congressman, you know, every once in a while, Willie and I and Mika like to play word association games.
Okay.
So we're going to play it with you this morning, starting right now. Now seems to be a good time, right?
Sure.
Here we go. Ready? Carter Page, go. Loopy. Okay.
Yeah,
You're
exactly. That's the word. What's going on?
No, so as we were talking about earlier with David and myself, loopy, but at the same time, damning would be another word as it goes to and shocking. Some of the revelations that have brazen that have come out. Talk about the significance outside of the loopy testimony, the significance of his testimony on the larger investigation.
Yeah, it was. I got to tell you, I've been doing this for a while, and it was one of the weirder depositions I've sat through. 7 hours of really eccentric behavior, and by the way, I mean, I think it was Lincoln who said, you know, he who represents himself has a fool for a client. You know, you don't get near this stuff without a lawyer's advice. And Joe, to answer your question, the reason for that is that, as you see from reading the transcript, there were any number of fairly important contradictions in his testimony, actually on the day of his testimony. So. You know, probably the big one was, and I don't want to make too much of this because we're in the investigation. You don't want to draw conclusions from one particular testimony, but, you know, he tells the media, he tells us first that he's had no contact, no meetings, no greetings. You'll see there's that whole argument there with senior Russian officials. But then the ranking member, Adam Schiff, reads him this email where he's reported back to the Trump campaign that, in fact, he got all these incredible insights from very senior people in Russia.
And so Marcy Wheeler made the point that there is reason to believe that, and she goes through this stuff like I can't even begin to understand what she understands about reading releases, reports, filed indictments, whatnot. But she is speculating that it appears that multiple of these advisors, J.D. Gordon, Carter Page, others, were interviewed during the time after or between the time that Papadopoulos was arrested and indicted and the time they went public with that. So that at the time that they were talking to Mueller's people, they would not know that Papadopoulos had already told Mueller everything there was to know about possible conversations that these people had, and that it is very possible that their stories were inconsistent with the story that Mueller heard from Papadopoulos. So there could be people who are quite aware of the fact. Maybe a guy like Clovis. Remember, he stepped down the other day from his nomination to be the chief scientist for the USDA. It wasn't like he just found out that he didn't have any science background. And understand that Republicans would be able to pass him through the nomination process, no problem. And it's not like there was a lot of scrutiny on Clovis with everything else that was going on. But for some reason, he felt that it might be better for him not to continue forward with his nomination. So,
what was it?
We shall see.
About? By the time it's over, I'm going to be president.
Let's turn towards Virginia for a moment. Ed Gillespie, this was one of the sort of last attempts by Gillespie. One of the concerns that people have had is if Gillespie somehow overcomes the Trump deficit, even against a campaign run by Northam, which everyone has assessed as being a fairly weak one, that Gillespie running his anti-immigrant, thinly veiled racist campaign would become a model for other Republican campaigns. Let's take a look at one of the last ads that Gillespie released.
Last year, Terry McAuliffe and Ralph Northam instituted the automatic restoration of rights for violent felons and sex offenders, making it easier for them to obtain firearms and allowing them to serve on juries. One of these felons, John Bowen, had his rights restored 2 months after being found with one of the largest child pornography collections in Virginia's history. 43 prosecutors, Republicans, Democrats, and independents opposed Ralph Northam's reckless policy. Now, Virginia law enforcement has endorsed Ed Gillespie for governor.
Virginians who have paid their debt to society and are living an honest life should have their rights restored. Ralph Northam's policy of automatic restoration of rights for unrepentant, unreformed, violent criminals is wrong. As governor, I'll be both compassionate and protecting of Virginia families. I'm Ed Gillespie, candidate for governor, and I sponsored this ad.
I wonder how that would work when they give the voting rights to the people who they know are...
Hey, do you want to look at more child porn? Yeah, I do. I actually got to be honest about that.
No
so
voting
I guess I will take my voting rights now. Thank you.
Meanwhile,
that's like religious screening at the border.
Yeah, exactly.
How would you actually do this?
Right. It's absurd. It's absurd. But of course, Northam involved in a pro-pedophilia. Here is an ad. This is not an ad, right? This is a video of a guy in Virginia who had his voting rights. He's a former felon. Guy's name is Theodore Dortch. He's 37. He had his voting rights restored in Virginia this year. Today he voted for the first time. And, you know, we've mentioned this sort of in passing. Terry McAuliffe was sort of... I don't know if I would make him Exhibit A, but maybe exhibit A minus of the type of sort of centrist, corporatist Dem that you really had to hold your nose and support in a Virginia race. And he wouldn't be the guy that you would want there to be the Democratic nominee, but he was. And McAuliffe turned out to be a pretty good governor. Expansion of Medicaid, voting rights. He did this almost unilaterally. There were other measures, I think, too, that McAuliffe took, but just those two alone enfranchised a lot of people to vote, gave people opportunity to have health insurance. And here is Theodore Dortch.
Hey, my name is Theodore Dortch. This is my first time voting. I got my rights story back this year. I never voted before. And how I feel, I'm a taxpayer. I go to work every day, and it feels good to, be some positive today. I say I pay taxes, and I never got to vote, so they ain't go hand in hand. So I pay the government, but they won't let me vote. So today is a good day, special day for me. I hope, I ain't gonna say who won, but I know my fingers are crossed, the right person get in there and do a good job.
That's it.
Well, exactly. Black people are voting. It's a problem.
Was that guy, are we sure that guy was living an honest life, though?
Yeah. I mean, you look at him, and I don't know, I can't exactly put my finger on it, but there's something not trustworthy about him. I don't know what it is.
Can't quite get it. Let's go to the IMs. Ernie Sandwich, there are mutterings that Christie wants a job as a political pundit. MSNBC might hire him. Oh,
the sports talk didn't work out.
So yeah,
that would be just horrific.
Welcome to the resistance.
That would be pretty heuristic. I mean,
it would be heuristic as well, in a certain sense.
There would be heuristic.
It would be very heuristic. Total heuristic.
Total.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did that.
At this point, it
I
wouldn't
bet they
surprise
do
me
that.
If they hire that lying piece of crap, I've lost all faith in society and our ability to hold people in power accountable for their crimes. If not in prison, he needs to be ostracized. It would almost be too much to bear to see him given a permanent platform to spew his opinions and further normalize his jackassery.
I bet he'll have plenty of nice conversations with your best buddy in the world, Chris Hayes.
Has the Majority Report ever attempted to be broadcasted on a more accessible platform to reach more listeners? We have had offers to go on radio. Actually, a couple of decent affiliates. It would involve making the free show. It would involve it would involve changes to this show so that we could cut the show and put the show onto a specific clock, and it would cost money for us to do that. It is something that, like, I've contemplated. If I ever went to go raise money, at the very least, part of that reason would be to attempt to make the show or a version of the show available on radio, just because, as we're talking to Dave Neiwert, the fact of the matter is there's only one way to fight this narrative. There's only one way to do it, and it is radio. You're not going to launch a $1 billion project to create another version of, like a left-wing television. It's just, you're not going to do it. You can't do it. You won't get clearance on these cable outlets even. But radio, it's much cheaper to do. And it's the only way. It's the only way you're going to reach rural areas where people are going to accidentally come across your programming.
Those Jews in New York really did dissuaded me from David Duke, see?
I mean, look,
I know.
I contend that if there were two affiliates, small affiliates in Wisconsin, or in Michigan for that matter,
Oh, that might have helped.
it would have made a big difference.
I think I'm here because of Liberal Talk Radio out of Minneapolis was broadcast in Bismarck for a couple months.
That was like blazing up, listening to Tom Hartman.
Honestly,
like, I think it's a totally different way of doing things, man. Fuck.
Radio is the most ubiquitous medium, and it reaches people in a way that no other medium can. Look closely. You can see Putin's likeness on the back of Carter Page's head. Matt Lex mom. Sam, could you please tell 00 Matthew that he left his toy pistol and olives in the Camry again? I need them cleaned up. I have to go to Bridge tonight.
Great. It was a Camry. Did I mention that? I don't know.
I don't think you did. I think they just called.
Wait, what was that story? I missed that one.
We played a video of this alt-right guy wandering around a Latino neighborhood scaring himself.
Right.
And I said it reminded me of when I first got a car. I was big into like X-Files and Jason Bourne, and I'd like do like a fun lane change or like drive down like a alley or something like that, and I'd felt like I was a intel agent or a spy or something like that.
He pretended he was a spy in
Wow.
Bismarck, basically.
There you go.
You gotta entertain yourself.
No, I understand.
A lot of snow. Well, not much going
on. Epish. Dave's really great and a real personable guy. I've had some excellent conversations with him. He's a tremendous writer. Every book's worth reading. So what's with the Benadryl for the authoritarian allergen? I'd say it's democratic ideology is seeing your way forward. I have to tell you that beside the right, I think the anti-populist, anti-labor, liberal rich are the next biggest threat. Liberals who bash labor unions and black liberation really just empower the authoritarian right. Yes, they become that much more of a problem because I don't know if there is a Benadryl, to continue this metaphor. I think you basically just hope that the allergen blows out of town because I don't think they change. I think you can change the perspective of so-called liberals who bash labor unions and black liberation by basically a threat of a backlash. Like, there was some exchange on Twitter I saw the other day about, the value. Maybe it had to do with Tom Steyer's thing. I'm not sure exactly what it was. Or maybe it was, the idea of, you've got a guy running for governor in New Jersey who was a Goldman Sachs guy. And I think the exchange was something to the effect of like, I don't know, it's too bad that we have to rely on. Oh, and maybe there's also a Pritzker running in Illinois, and they both are supportive of fairly progressive policies. And someone said, like, I'm not sure I trust, like these uber wealthy guys to be carrying these progressive policies. And somebody said, well, it worked, in the 30s with Roosevelt. But there was also a reminder, at that time, the people protesting were significantly more hardcore than what we see even today. Flint protesting, the GM plant there. So those people can be essentially can make an assessment of like, oh, we better do X because if not, Y is going to be worse. With authoritarian personalities, there is no calculation where they change. Like that's what that guy Altemeyer said to me was like, yeah, I don't know if there's anything can be done.
I mean, I think what Epish might be getting at also is the possibilities of unions and class struggle for fighting white supremacy and building solidarity between different races of people. Like, I recently watched a documentary about 1976 struggle to unionize coal workers in Harlan County, USA, in Kentucky. And it was, I highly recommend it.
With Barbara Koppel, is it? Harlan County, yeah.
Harlan County, USA was the title by Barbara Koppel. And like this is in the 70s in rural coal country when black workers and white workers united to fight this incredibly important battle. So I don't think that should be underestimated as having a role in fighting white supremacy.
Yeah, I mean, the history is mixed on that, but yes, I agree. Just to harp on the get out the vote message, if any Majority Report viewers are in Southwest Brooklyn, Bay Ridge, Diker Heights, Bath Beach, I urge them to support Justin Brandon for city council. He's on the Democratic and Working Families line. The district was recently featured in a Radio Lab episode called Father K, which exposed some very real racism simmering in what is most ethnically diverse areas in New York City. Brandon reflects the leftist streak of the population, but his GOP opponent is a stand-in for the insidious archetype among New York Republicans, far-right Trump sycophants, plays to elderly residents' bigoted fears. The GOP candidate just stops short of calling our dense Muslim community terrorists and flogs images of homeless epidemic in the area. That just isn't so. Brooklyn's solidly blue, but South Brooklyn is in real danger of falling into the hands of the GOP. Get out and vote, Brooklyn. Paul from... Hey, guys, just finished filling in your survey, but you forgot Cliff's Unprecedented podcast. Shame on you. Anyway, I was watching a video on a YouTube channel I won't reveal for your own sanity where they had Jimmy Dore on a conspiracy lunatics panel. They were talking about how the CIA was created by Nazis, Sandy Hook was a false flag, and that the moon was hollow. Jimmy Jones Dore was the voice of wisdom on the panel. He said, and that says it all. He's really gone to the dark side. Send me a link to that. Calling from a 478 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Good afternoon, my Yankee brethren and sister, and shalom, Sam. This is Jeff from Georgia.
Hello, Jeff. What's on your mind?
Sam, I know you know your history, and I know that you know that I know my history. So you know that I know that you know that back in the days before the abolition of chattel slavery in this great country of ours, our frozen neighbors to the north, you Yankees, if you will, the great land of Canada, served as refuge for abolitionists and escaped slaves. And I'm here to tell you that today, on this very day, they harbor a TMBS patron and big majority of our fan named Marie. And today is her birthday, so we down here at the League of Extraordinary Progressive Southern Gentlemen just want to wish her all the best. Will you join us in that endeavor, Sam?
I will say, what is her name?
My name is Jeff in Georgia.
No. What is her name?
Marie.
Marie, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Marie.
She also runs the TMBS Discord as moderator, so I'm just doing my best to get in with her good graces. I also want to take this opportunity to remind everyone that fortune favors the bold. And our work is never done. So everyone be sure to get out there and vote. And also do your duty in the war on Christmas this season. Wish people happy holidays, Merry Kwanzaa, a beautiful Ramadan, or whatever the fuck, because we cannot let these people get a preemptive strike. War is real and is here. It is upon us. Do you agree, Sam?
I do, but I have called a momentary armistice so that people can go out and vote. But starting tomorrow, the war on Christmas, we're going to full force.
That sounds just fine to me, Sam. But whatever your holiday or ethos, perhaps you could find it in your heart to maybe send Carter Page some of that information you talked about at the top of the show about life insurance, because I'm incredibly worried about that man. I just really don't know why he is acting so strangely and just cannot stop from getting up in front of cameras. It's almost like he's afraid something's going to happen to him if nobody's watching him. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do understand what you're saying, and I think you might be. I mean that explains as much as anything, right? Like, I mean, if you are concerned about your safety, that would be the way to do it.
Everybody tune in to the Michael Brooks Show tonight. Y'all have a good one now.
All right. Appreciate it. Of course, that is also the host of the Dissident Peasant, ladies and gentlemen. A Dissident Peasant, you can find that on iTunes. Where you can find that on iTunes. Donald Trump was involved in a joint press conference alongside the South Korean President Moon Jae-in.
And boy, did I crush it.
In Seoul, today.
think
Well,
it's today.
tomorrow. Actually, they're so far ahead of us that it actually happened today, but that was almost like our yesterday.
They're very tricky people. That's how they do it.
And Donald Trump, who, of course, took some time to I'm getting a little confused on the various different mass shootings that we've had over the past couple of weeks. But to speak up about the church shooting in Texas, but he didn't have too much time to talk about it.
Thank you, Mr. President. You've talked about wanting to put extreme vetting on people trying to come into the United States, but I wonder if you would consider extreme vetting for people trying to buy a gun.
Trying to what?
Buy a gun.
Well, you know, you're bringing up a situation that probably shouldn't be discussed too much right now. We could let a little time go by, but it's okay if you feel that that's an appropriate question, even though we're the heart of South Korea. I will certainly answer your question. If you did what you're suggesting, there would have been no difference 3 days ago, and you might not have had that
Pause
very
it.
brave.
Actually, hold on for 1 second. In fact, it turns out that there would have been a difference. It appears that the Air Force messed up because this guy was dishonorably discharged from the Air Force. He should not have been eligible to get a weapon. And now we don't know for sure that extreme vetting would have done anything about that because we don't know what that is. But
maybe one of the victims could have turned out to be an even bigger killer in the future. I mean, there's just a lot of things that we can't know. And we're in South Korea. Have you ever seen one of those horror movies that these people make? They're crazy.
Okay, continue.
Difference 3 days ago, and you might not have had that very brave person who happened to have a gun or a rifle in his truck go out and shoot him and hit him and neutralize him. And I can only say this, if he didn't have a gun, instead of having 26 dead...
Pause it. My understanding is that that's not the case, is it? But that was the understanding that the president did. He's making that part up, but that's not.
I'm not sure. Let's check that.
But the
and even if it was the case, that's a 1 in.
Well,
just
the point is, if you're doing extreme vetting, why would that guy not have a gun? What was it in that guy's background that would prevent him from having a gun?
Well, because liberals don't want him to have guns, because he would stop a mass shooting, because sometimes mass shooters are minorities, and liberals don't want them to be stopped. Political correctness. Boom.
Go ahead.
Instead of having 26 dead, you would have had hundreds more dead. So that's the way I feel about it.
And are you
not going to help?
And are you
Pause it. Hold on for 1 second. He's suggesting that it was possible there were going to be hundreds more dead. So, like, the upshot is only 26 people died.
There was like 700 people in the town.
Yeah. Okay.
And are you considering any kind of gun control policy going
When you
forward?
look at the city with the strongest gun laws in our nation is Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And Chicago is a disaster. It's a total disaster. Just remember, if this man didn't have a gun or a rifle, you'd be talking about a much worse situation in the great state of Texas. Thank you.
So there you have it. Donald Trump in the heart of South Korea to answer a question like this.
Every time people talk about this guy that supposedly like neutralized the shooter, I think of this Gary Johnson quote.
Well, first of all, just grateful that nobody got hurt.
What was that?
I can't remember. That was a shooting. Yeah,
Right.
I can't remember.
There was definitely a circumstance where somebody had gotten hurt.
Yeah.
I miss
This
Gary.
is,
Remember how Gary Johnson used to get so mad too.
This was on. I saw various forms of this in response to the shooting in Texas, and I gotta say, like, there is such a a deranged perspective on these things that I can't quite get my arms around it. But here is Fox's Ainsley Earhart and her perspective on this shooting.
Governor, you know, we've been reporting this shouldn't happen in a church, but I was downstairs talking with some people that work here that we all talk about our faith and we share the same beliefs. We were saying there's no other place we would want to go other than church, because I'm there asking for forgiveness. I feel very close to Christ when I'm there. So I'm trying to look at some positives here and know that those people are with the Lord now and experiencing eternity and no more suffering, no more sadness anymore.
Right. There's a lot of suffering and sadness, I think, that is still going to be around for the people who are around them, like maybe the parents of the grandparents of the children that were killed, and maybe friends of people. In fact, I would say the amount of suffering that's going to take place in that town of 700 people and pain is going to be immeasurable. Now, you won't go there. You won't even think about it 2 weeks from now. But the idea that somehow the silver lining is that they were in church. Hey, you know where would be a great place to get shot to death? Would also be if you were in a grave. Like maybe if they didn't, unfortunately for them, they weren't thrown into a 6-foot grave. That way you don't even need to have to deal with the whole funeral thing. And, you know, you see all this, like, I think Paul Ryan sent out, you know, our thoughts and prayers are with us. They were praying at the time.
Not good enough.
So
My
maybe
prayers are
like
much
that
better.
way they could pray, you know, like so other people could finish their prayers because their prayers got interrupted by getting shot.
They were praying the gay away, not the shooting away.
It's just unbelievable that there could be any other reaction to this than total horror that we allow stuff like this to happen on now what feels like a weekly basis, right? Like, I mean, this month, the past 2 or 3 weeks, we've had 700 people, 650 people shot in just 2 different events. More than 75 people shot dead in just 2 instances. It's just well, this one was better than Vegas because they were there and they were so close to Jesus.
Kind of trashy to get shot at in Vegas.
Not so close to Jesus that he could do something about the bullets, but close enough that it makes it better for them to be shot. So we've got that going for us, that they were close to Jesus when they were shot.
But isn't this like exactly what they have to do? They're never going to do anything about it policy-wise. So you have to create all these ludicrous nonsense scenarios.
Of course.
It's like the only thing that you can do.
You know the great thing about those people who got shot in Vegas? They died listening to music they enjoyed. I mean, that's the way we all want to go out, right? Or those folks who died in that movie house. Like, they loved going to the movies. That's the way they want to go out. Enjoying a movie.
Big Batman fans.
Oh,
Big
yes.
Batman fans.
Oh, it was so great when those children were killed in their schoolhouse because they showed their love of learning. And that's the way you want to go out. Loving to learn as you're being shot to death.
I was talking to Brendan before the show, and I said, you know, the Taj Mahal would be a great place to get shot at.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Or, you know, it's also a great place to get shot. To get shot at a restaurant when you're enjoying one of your favorite foods. That's the way to go out. Having enjoyed one of your favorite foods. Or maybe when you're with your kids. That would be a great way to be shot.
You know, you're
Who
hanging
doesn't
out
love
with
their
your
kids?
fucking children. You're just
Yeah.
having a good quality family time. And then boom, that's it.
So
Great way to
fantastic.
fucking go.
So fantastic.
I wish that I was with my daughter as a nanny, just admiring her incredible rack. Have you seen my daughter's rack?
Jesus is
Incredible.
probably sitting up there going, God bless Ainsley Earhart. She totally gets it. She totally gets it. Totally gets it. This is what I want for my flock. To be in my house of worship, close to me, as that bullet pierces maybe their heads, maybe their chests, as the lead rips their flesh apart, and they have a moment to recognize that all the other people with them are going to join them in heaven too. And maybe my flock, as they're watching their children get pierced by the bullets, that's what I want. I sit up here, up in heaven, and wait for these people to float up to me. And this is the way it is. No pain. This is going to be
no pain, no gain.
Great. This is going to be great.
No.
Getting shot is not painful at all.
No pain, no gain.
No, it's going to be great.
Secular humanist. Pussy. Cock.
Die
with her family. Go to church. Kick back. Have a prayer. Shot in the head.
Shot.
Maybe not. Maybe you do. Either way, it's great.
Calling from a 651 area code. Who's this?
Hi, it's the Chris Lapaco, and I voted today for Raymond Dean in Minneapolis. He's a good guy.
Nice.
I also voted for my first socialist today too. Ranked choice voting, man. We are so liberal over here, it's nuts.
That's great stuff. I was just going to say, your first socialist was getting knocked, according to a piece I saw, for not being a Democrat by a Republican.
Well.
It's so amazing how people even.
My head is in my palm right now. My face is in my palm. Whatever. Who cares? These people are stupid. Anyway, speaking of stupid people, Carter Page did come on my show. It was a lot of fun. I'm thinking about doing a reality show with him called Life with Carter. And basically, I just follow him around everywhere he goes in a giant windowless van, and hilarity ensues. He just looks scared.
I did that. We called it I'm with Busey.
Yeah,
I think he's a lot more pleasant fellow than Busey.
Definitely.
He seems a lot more good.
I'm not going to get as close to him, though. I'm just going to, hang back and, peek out the window of my van every once in a while, and I'll have tinted windows, so it'll be fun. I don't want to talk to him, though. He won't shut the fuck up.
I'll tell you something.
Hey,
I'll tell you something.
Yeah.
I am not convinced that for a dollar amount that you could not get Carter Page to do that immediately. I'm not convinced that if you were to basically say, dude, I'm going to pay you $10,000 an episode, that you couldn't get him to start shooting by the end of the week.
I think $100 a week. He would probably
Holy
do that.
shit.
Anyway,
dude, honestly,
$100 a week.
Honestly,
we should approach him now.
This is an Indiegogo campaign. I'm going to go out, Lapaco, you say, I'm going to raise $100,000. I'm going to make the offer to Carter Page, $10,000 an episode. We're going to shoot 6 episodes. If he doesn't accept it, I'll return all the money. Or I don't know which is the one. Is it Kickstarter? You gotta you do that it's a pledge or whatever. Man, gold. He'll do it. I think Carter Page would do it.
Anytime I do crowdfunding, I get banned from their site. So
because you have awesome crowdfunding ideas. That's why. And the cucks in the crowdfund industrial complex won't bow to your ideas.
They're trying to keep me down. Speaking of the man trying to keep the indie media people down, Tim Black, looks like he was cyber attacked the other day. Someone hacked his show.
Was his show really hacked? I mean, everybody's saying, there is a tendency amongst people when they have a technical problem to attribute it to darker forces. There is a tendency for when even normal things happen,
Digby. When Digby was on the other day, the power cut out right as she was talking about something kind of conspiratorial.
Yeah, that's true. Oh no, that's not what I meant. I meant this.
That's
Wait a second! I pressed that button first, but the fanfare worked. Who's hacked my board?
Well, previously he said it was a DOS attack. The week before, someone did a DOS attack after I called in. And I took credit for that, but obviously I didn't do it, right?
Well,
but then
if you say so,
I didn't do it. Okay, I didn't do it. All right, let's just be clear. So this week, I tuned in, or just last Friday, I tuned in again to see if he would get hacked, and he went to his first caller, and it seemed to me like the caller just set down his phone next to the stream and then started laughing his ass off. And Tim freaked out and thought that his shit got hacked, and it might have been because he had to reset his whole phone system. And I definitely didn't do that one either.
Okay.
Okay. I did not call his show and just set the phone down next to his stream and watch him shit himself. I would never do anything like that. But anyway,
so this video that you were definitely not a part of, is there a way that one could find this like immediately and watch it like now?
Yeah, if you just go to YouTube and punch in who's hacking Tim Black or who hacked Tim Black.
Wait, is that an intentional Biggie reference too? Like who hacked you?
Yes. Oh no, that's funny. No, that wasn't intentional. Oh man,
wait a second.
Kind of makes it even better.
Video?
Who hacked it?
Yes, we gotta play who hacked you. Separate. We're about to play this
on my YouTube channel.
All right, hold on. This is on Chris LePay.
For those who are unaware, I called Tim Black's show on Friday.
What?
And just gave him some shit.
Oh.
Basically told him he should talk about the PP dossier instead of the Uranium One. If he wanted to waste time with conspiracy theories, he should go down.
Oh, and it'll go to it quick.
Anyway, he accused me of being a stalker, even though he follows me on Twitter. Called me a bunch of homophobic names, muted me, hung up on me, and then continued to rant and ramble about how neoliberals.
All right, just go through. Let's see the live action. I don't need to. I skip the part of Marin too when he talks.
Let's rock, y'all. Let's rock. All right.
He's got a good set.
I ain't falling for no banana in my tailpipe. I ain't falling for no bananas in my tailpipe. My first number is a 518 number. 518, you're live on Freedom Friday. Hey. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Marvin? Yeah, bro. Is that working? Oh, damn.
What's going on? I don't follow it even. I can't even follow what's going on here. Who's he talking to on the phone? Why is he on the phone with somebody on?
Okay, bro. Yeah, I got called. I was in the first call, man.
That's what I'm saying. It just sounded like someone set down the phone next to the stream that was playing, and then he was getting feedback.
He's calling his tech person because he thinks that there's a major problem.
Oh, is that what's
it's
going
just
on?
Yes.
I think it was.
It's so classic.
Anyway,
I think I have the right level of immaturity.
You got on the tech level. You got on the
Chris.
phone with the tech guy super quick.
Like, well, because you already know that he'd been hacked by Neiwert and Chris Lepaco.
No.
I think the people on hold behind this other person had his cell phone number, and they were calling him to say that the phones are messed up because they could hear what was happening on hold too. But that's just a speculation. That's just speculation. So
Fair enough.
Anyway.
All right. Well.
Just be aware. And Tim Black, I hope your show doesn't get hacked this week. Bye.
Who hacked you?
Well, I feel like we get people do that to us all the time, and
I think it does.
We just turn it into we make it into good radio. You call them from a 512 area code. Have you voted?
Of course. First day of early voting in Texas was Monday, October 23rd.
And you voted on that day?
Yes, I did.
Good for you.
Absolutely.
Who's this?
So I'm calling in. This is Tammy in
Hi,
Texas,
Tammy.
in Austin. Go by Theology OP on Twitter. I was listening to John's call from San Antonio. Did he talk about the constitutional amendment selection today?
No, he did not.
All right, I'm going to hit this quick. For all your Texas listeners who have not voted yet, don't forget the jingle. Y'all Texans voting today. It's easy to remember. Indivisible calls this play. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, yes, yes.
Yes,
That's the
no.
7 amendments.
Okay. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, yes, yes.
See how easy it is to remember?
Yes, no, yes, no, yes, yes, yes.
In a certain sense.
But with a little more pep, Sam.
Well, I'm doing my best.
We're talking about Texas here.
I am not very good with songs, but yes, no, yes, no, yes, yes, yes.
Yes, no. But,
that's a boy. There you
my
go.
throat hurts.
All right, that's great. That's a great little.
That's from the Indivisible Texas Ledge Group. We call our legislature the Ledge, as in jump off of. Anyway, so if they can just remember that little mnemonic for anybody in Travis County, also vote yes, that's Austin. Also vote yes on A and B. And for people in the Leander ISD and the Bastrop ISD independent school districts, yes and yes. So really the easiest thing to remember is 2 and 4 are no's and everything else is yes.
That's great, Tammy. Thank you so much for calling.
Can I say a little something
Yep.
just about the Texas gun thing?
Yep.
I went 9 rounds with Michael about evangelicals and guns and yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to do that to you today. I'm just going to say I'm an atheist Texas woman, but I, like these crazy evangelicals, I want to go out doing something I love too. I want to go out on the receiving end of an extreme betting, and the only gun that I want in the picture is a flesh one. Thank you very much.
I'm not exactly sure I know what that means, but I will.
Did she say extreme betting?
I think that's what she said, yeah.
Extreme betting with a flesh gun. That's the way she wants to be taken out. All right.
It's not where I expected that call to go.
Yes, no, yes, no, yes, yes, yes. Calling from a 423 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. It's Zach from Tennessee.
Zach,
and it's
did you vote?
late.
Did you vote today?
Yes, sir. I did. And I wanted to call and do a funny Rand Paul impression about my fighting over my daffodil dump, but I don't have
Has that
the
guy been?
critical
Has
skill-
that guy been doing?
Well,
Has he been charged yet?
I'm not sure. I don't have the critical thinking skills to look that up, but I mean, that's... Thanks, John.
There you go, John. Come on. Look at you.
Not
Insulted
good, man.
Zach. He has been charged? You sure?
Agreement. No,
I'm asking
yeah,
Brendan.
they charged the guy. Yeah, and the FBI is getting involved now. So, you know, freedom. Hey, freedom isn't free. You can't just dump your daffodils.
Because I was waiting to see if it was actually a question. If they didn't press charges, it would lead me to believe that there was something else going on. That it wasn't necessarily a neighborly thing as much as it was like a coveting thing, if you know what I mean.
Stop having sex with my wife. That's not your property. You don't own
off
her.
my
I purchased
libertarian.
her in the 1980s. Dad said that I owned her now. Stop having
Well, this
intercourse with my
is a
wife.
libertarian yard war, brother. So stay out of it.
Having sex
or
with my
we'll take
wife
you to
is
court.
against the Constitution.
Anyway,
Zach, that's a
dude,
little
I'll talk
John
to you
Wayne-ish.
later.
All right, what's on your mind?
Oh,
Is that it? Just the John Wayne
yeah,
stuff?
man, that's that's it, Pilgrim. Okay.
That's pretty good.
All right.
Appreciate the
See you
call.
I
later.
would really like to
Thank you.
host Rand Paul's neighbor on my show or this one.
You should.
I think.
Good.
I mean,
Send it
well,
an invite.
maybe after his legal issues. I mean, look, I don't condone violence, but I still think he's a hero. And imagine if Rand Paul misses votes on a tax bill, as close as it is, if he's not in the Senate.
My understanding is
might be historic.
I don't know what it's on a reconciliation. My understanding is that that's actually it's theoretically with McCain and Rand Paul out, they could theoretically bring back health care and or maybe the tax bill. I guess the idea is that you don't need 50 plus 1 if there's not 100 senators there. It is a function of how many senators are in attendance.
Let's hope Murkowski doesn't get tackled.
You got a problem on your button.
I have one of Michael's old buttons.
Yeah.
Why?
Take my.
Because he's got his? Okay.
Because I've got mine.
One fun fact about the Rand Paul altercation is that he and his neighbor are both 5'8". His neighbor's 165 pounds and somehow managed to break 5 of his ribs.
Because I drink cola all day and try to scurry away from black people. Read on Rand.
Calling
Doesn't make your
on
bones strong.
a 215 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Sam. It's Mindy. Hi, Michael.
Hello, Mindy. Did you vote today, Mindy?
Hi. I vote. What?
Did you vote today?
Of course I voted. I was number 176. And the people there told me that it was very strong for the Republicans in the morning. And then when I got there at 11, it was getting half and half. And I put my name on a list. I spoke to the Democratic guy there, and I put my name on the list, and I told him that I wanted to be involved. And he took my name and my email address and all that, and he said that he would get involved. He would let me get involved. He was very happy.
Great.
So hopefully, I mean, I never saw a turnout like this. It was just for judges, like local judges and stuff. It was just like bullshit stuff. But it was packed. Then the other thing I wanted to say is that all of our signs, because we were a blue state, now we're a red state in Pennsylvania. What are we now? What are we now, Sam? My state?
Pennsylvania?
Yeah, we're red.
Well,
blue,
I mean, I would say you're purple.
Right, so we're purple. So all of our signs were blue. Every sign, even the Republicans, with no party affiliation on them.
That's good.
There was it was really confusing because you had to do your homework before, I voted down ballot, but like on the questions, it was really confusing. And somebody like me that's pretty well informed, it was confusing too.
Yeah, I think that's
no
true with a lot of stuff. I think that's true with a lot of stuff.
So, yeah, I wanted to say that. And then
real
the last
quick,
thing
can I
wanted
just
to
say,
is,
in Philly,
what?
that's a big race. I'm sorry. Philly
Go ahead.
Philly's on the verge. I mean, I'm sure it's a foregone conclusion because it's a Democrat, but I mean, he's on the verge.
It's not a foregone conclusion, I don't think, but maybe.
Whatever. If you're in Philly, go vote. There's a Black Lives Matter endorsed DA candidate,
Larry Krasner.
Yes, that's a very big race.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I'm in the Jew burbs up here. I'm in the burbs, so I'm all the way up to.
I was saying more broadly. I know.
No, everyone's voting. There's everybody was talking about it today on the local TV and everything.
Well, call in with the results tomorrow.
I will, real quick. My girlfriend, who's a Republican, because she has to be, because she thinks she needs to be because of the money bracket she's in, which is so retarded, posted this whole thing on Facebook today about how James Mansfield, all about, regulations. Like, James Mansfield got killed, her head got cut off, and now on the back of trucks, they have to have a bar so you can't go under the truck. All these, she posted all these regulations. She was alluding to gun control, and one of the regulations she was talking about was the one for the fertilizer one that the first day Trump undid.
Right. Okay. Yes, I know what you're talking about.
How fertilizer killed people, and then they regulated fertilizer. And she was alluding to we should say no to gun control. And they spent 45 minutes on the phone screaming at her today because.
Wait a second. She said say no to gun control because of all these regulations.
No. She was talking about all these regulations. She was giving examples of all these regulations.
Of good regulations.
Fertilizer, back of a truck regulations, something about a Tylenol packaging regulation, right. All those regulations when you blow up a plane, now you can't get in the cockpit
regulations
anymore.
that were helpful, that saved lives.
Yeah, really good regulations, alluding to we should have gun control as she votes for Trump last year.
Right.
So, and she So the point I'm trying to make is these really educated people that think they're really educated have no freaking clue what they're talking about or doing. Because we have, again, I'm going to say it again, we have no message.
Well, I mean, Mindy, I hope, and it sounds like you did, you told your friend, hey, these regulations exist because of the type of government that Donald Trump explicitly is trying to get rid of. I mean, the one thing that he's been able to do, is to destroy the administrative state. Degrade the administrative state. And we're seeing these regulations drop one at a time.
Right, like the fertilizer one.
Yep.
He got rid of the Dow Chemical fertilizer one. I know, I'm on this.
All right, well.
It's unbelievable.
Good, Mindy. I hope you made a difference with her.
But people don't know, and I'm trying to educate my friends without losing them. It's very difficult because it's not their fault that they're ill-informed. They're just not informed. I mean, when their biggest thing is that, Good Behavior came back on, and there's 3 episodes to stream, and that's their life. It's very hard to explain.
Well, you got to get them to listen to the show.
Yeah, right. I'm trying. Last thing, big high five to Ronald Reagan. Don't like to give him props, but he even made me laugh out loud. It was freaking hilarious.
There you go. Boom.
His Carter page was on point, perfect.
Mindy, wow, thanks. That's big praise coming from you.
Yeah.
Appreciate the call.
Big praise, and he's mean to me. Goodbye.
Bye.
Love you.
Ronald Reagan's, I think, he's mean to a lot of people.
Ronald Reagan, he's a tough guy.
He's a tough guy.
He's a tough
Call
guy.
him from a 610
He's fair,
area code.
but
Who's
he's
this?
tough.
Where you calling from?
But he's fair, but he's tough.
610.
Hey, Sam. It's Mike from Pennsylvania.
Mike from Pennsylvania.
Mike. Why
Everybody's
don't
in
you
the
here's to
regular
depress.
color.
Here he is to depress voter turnout.
Regular
Hey, listen,
color.
Mike. Anywhere, anytime, any place, I'll lay you the fuck out.
Listen, I've been looking over my calls for the past 4 years and calculated that I am correct in my predictions 69.420% of the time. So, back off.
Are you trying to make fun of my statistics?
Thank you.
Make fun of my statistical analysis. I'll smack your fucking face.
Yeah.
All right, so what do you got?
Election day. Haven't voted yet. Usually vote at the end of the day to do a turnout count, but cautiously optimistic about Virginia from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, me too.
But
We'll see.
We'll see what happens.
Yes.
And this will be a good test. Don't forget Maine. Got to vote there too.
Maine is huge. There's a referendum on Medicaid expansion for what would be up to, I think, 70,000 maniacs would receive expanded Medicaid. As you know, Governor Lepage has vetoed expansion of Medicaid 5 times, I believe, at this point. So if you are in Maine, Jimmy Reefer Cake, get out and vote, dude.
Get out and vote. And if you're one of the Pennsylvania callers or listeners, I know we got a bunch, make sure you vote against retaining our Chief Justice, who's a openly right-wing racist. So get rid of him and vote straight Democrat. Do not vote for the Green for Superior Court. There's only 4 slots. Republicans managed to get a Green, so there's 9. So they're hoping to scrape a percentage or 2 off of the vote. So make sure you vote straight D this time.
They do that in
for the,
Pennsylvania a
appellate
lot.
court
That seems to happen a lot in Pennsylvania.
Yep. Yeah, that's why I'm not a big Green Party fan.
Wait, so what? A
'cause I've
Republican
never
took over
seen
a green slot?
They
fund
basically
they just
Republicans
they fund
funnel
the
money
Green
into
Party
green.
so they can try to get a 2 or 3% from the Democrats in a lot of the statewide races. It's a common tactic. Like literally, Rick Santorum's donors give to the Pennsylvania Greens. I'm sure there's other Green parties that are great, but not ours. Our side.
All right, well, look, call in tomorrow when we get the results.
And one more thing. So there's a kind of confusing constitutional amendment they're trying to pass to abolish property taxes for schools. Make sure you vote against that in Pennsylvania. It's really important.
Yes,
So,
if you want to have
all
schools.
right, guys. And by the way, if those people who want to do the statistical analysis, it sounds very similar to something Zogsy does. But just, message me on Twitter, Michael W. Beyer, B-E-Y-E-R.
All
One
right.
word. All right, guys.
Thanks, man.
You have a
Keep
good
your
one.
mouth shut.
Bye.
Stop
Yep.
trying to depress turnout, or I'll catch you out of work.
All right.
All right, final call of the day, folks. Final call of the day. You are calling from a 757 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, this is Gray Krieger from Virginia Beach, Virginia. Just showed up to work, so I have limited time. I work at Target.
Yeah.
I was just going to give you a quick report on what I saw down where I voted before work this morning at the lunch break.
Yeah.
Virginia Beach, Virginia. I don't know if you know a lot about the Hampton Roads area, but from where I live specifically, the turnout was good, but it was good in the worst way possible, would be the best way to put it. And obviously this is completely anecdotal, but it was just old. I was probably the youngest person there. There were probably 50 people there. I was the youngest by probably 35 years.
Oy.
So, and we currently have terrible weather coming across the state right now, and I'm worried about that depressing turnout in areas like Charlottesville, Harrisonburg, Richmond, and things like that. Yeah, so I was just calling to tell you about that. I got to get into work. I've been on hold for a little bit,
All right.
but yeah,
Appreciate your
I can tell
holding.
people at work as well. Yep.
Appreciate your holding and telling
Thanks.
us. Thanks, man.
Thanks for the
Bye.
opportunity.
All right, bye-bye. We'll see. We'll see you tomorrow. All right, I'll take one more call. Calling from an 814 area code. Final call of the day. Who's this? Wait. He went away. Just as I was about to pick him up, he hung up. Sorry. That's it. I'm going to say goodbye on the calls. A couple more IMs and we're out of here. Let's see. Newbram. I voted today in Ohio, showed my ID, was made to sign something that said provisional ballot. I consider myself political savvy. I didn't think of it at the time, but the lady didn't say anything. She just said, sign this. I'm shaking right now, thinking my vote was put down a road to invalidation by a racist old lady. I wonder how many other people have this done to them every voting day. Wow. Call the ACLU. Call your local ACLU. Tell them all the details. Tell them now. Do it now.
What's the point of provisional ballots?
I mean, supposedly, if the race is close enough, supposedly they'll go back and check those. But it is ostensibly like if there's a problem with your registration. That's broadly speaking what it ends up being. Comrade Jeb, please spend 2 to 3 hours discussing the DNC's role in collaborating with the Clinton campaign to end the war on Christmas. It's been a staple of progressive values for over a decade. Clinton DNC was especially quiet on that issue. Albino, are you guys familiar with open source and the Open Source Democracy Party in Argentina? Any thoughts? I've read a little bit about it, but not too much.
Not much. Looks interesting.
PK Delu, have you ever heard of a swing version of La Poupe? I would love that. Well, if we had it, we would play it, believe me. Anthony from Baltimore, La Poupe is like the aristocrats of music. Anyway, authoritarians lay dormant until they're activated by an authoritarian leader. With the consolidation of media Sinclair, as well as right-wing politics having drifted so far to the right, RWAs will only become more prevalent, in my opinion. Conformity, homogeneity plays a large role in their value system. So the more RWAs that are surrounding a dormant RWA, the more likely they succumb to conformity and become an RWA themselves. There probably is a legitimate evolutionary explanation to that, but it doesn't interest me. I think the solution to calming RWAs is pass legislation that they will resist in the short term, but ultimately pacify them in the long term. Make material conditions better for everyone, including them. If material conditions are good, they won't need an authoritarian to inflict upon everyone else in their toddler-like lizard brain rage and aggrievement. Barhaim, why are we so afraid to talk about banning guns? If we had 90% less guns in the country, we're not afraid. It's that it's unconstitutional as the Supreme Court is constructed now. Ryan Tennant, stop saying Virginia's looking good. Say Virginia's looking like Gillespie's going to win by a single vote, so get out. Also, ACLU is reporting robocalls stating poll locations have been falsely been changed and are targeting Virginia voters. Another disgusting fascist, un-American attempt to suppress the vote. And I'm sure I know whose side these calls are coming from. Jules, going to vote yes or no on the convention thing? No. New York convention. Do you see Mike Stark had the shit beat out of him by the police for trying to report on the Gillespie campaign in Virginia? I haven't seen that video, but you guys played it, right?
Yeah, it was very disturbing.
Left is best. Any thoughts on the graduate student tuition aspect of the GOP tax plan? Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. It basically construes research grants or tuition basically paid in kind as part of taxable income. So theoretically, you could be making, like 22 grand, but have grants that allow you to attend a PhD program and be taxed on that and be taxed like a third of your actual income. Fourth of your actual, a half of your actual income at $20,000 a year.
So basically, you'll need to be wealthy to get a PhD.
It will destroy the PhD programs. For an effective 40%, 45% rate, this guy writes. Yeah, no, it's horrible, and I would imagine it is not a bug, but a feature. Not safe to drink. Good news, Flint's mayoral elections today, and Weaver's likely to be removed. Bad news, the other candidates are shitty too. Gotta love this city. Phony shrimp. Republicans want a response to gun violence. Us libs want prevention. That's the key difference. They see shootings, they think shoot 'em. We think don't let 'em have a gun. Homer third, living in Southern California, late 90s, and driving an old car that only had AM radio. The only thing I could listen to was right-wing KFI or oldie stations. It wasn't until I got my first iPod that I found my first leftist news and only listened at first to laugh at how stupid the left was. But it worked. Yes, good. The new Patrick. Okay, I'm legit undecided on this because both sides have good arguments. So you're the tiebreaker. Should I vote no or yes on ConCon in New York? No. No. It would be great, but you got to be overripe for this stuff. Bill Lipton from the Working Families Party put out a good statement on this. Babala, Sam, am I correct in my understanding that due to business deducting employee salaries from taxable revenue, that a cut in corporate tax actually disincentivizes raising wages and hiring employees, and raising corporate tax incentivizes raising wages and hiring employees? I don't know the research on that, but it makes sense insofar as if you have the opportunity to have your money taxed or to fill capacity to meet demand, you're going to you're going to invest in your company if you think there's more demand out there. But if you don't perceive there to be more demand, certainly you begin to depress wages, I think. But I don't know. Martha, 85. That caller will be the closest chance you have in talking to Dave Rubin. You are about politics and he is about the money. You will expose him in the worst way, Sam. Crapo Zappo. It would be pitiful failure if the Dems can't win in my state, Virginia. We've had a trend of going the opposite of the new president's party. Will it continue? It's rainy outside. Chef La. Sam, what do you think the Trump administration planned in connecting with the Russians, and why couldn't they just wait till after the election to connect with the Russians when it would have been done legally? What is it that they were ultimately trying to do? With all this Russia talk, nobody has explained why they felt the need to connect with Russia. Can you give me your best guess why? I don't know why they had to get so far out in front of instituting this policy. It's not like they've been particularly aggressive on anything else. They haven't even staffed up at this point.
I think they cheat. I think if they cheated, it's because they didn't want to get embarrassed. So you think you're going to lose the election from the beginning? You might as well take the help you can get. Plus, you've filled the campaign with a bunch of idiots.
Build relationships down the long run.
I mean, if they thought they were going to lose, this was all about their business. And I think, it is not hard to wave a stick around in the middle of any of those pictures of any of those meetings and hit a half a dozen people who are like, I'm going to make a ton of cash on this crap. And that's all it's about for me.
Of course.
So, final IM of the day. I'm sorry, couldn't get to all the IMers. Leon Gittins. Oh, this is a big one. Hi, Sam. So Boris the Buffoon Johnson puts his foot in again by saying British women being held in Iran was a teaching journalism when in reality she was just visiting relatives, and as a consequence has caused the poor woman's sentence to be doubled from 5 to 10 years. Jesus.
Fucking moron.
There are calls for him to resign or better still sack, but Theresa May is a weak and ineffective leader who doesn't dare sack him and have a potential leadership rival free to undermine her. Another minister has been caught making unilateral deals with the Israeli government about permission. She then denies it and today finally admits meeting with Bibi. She too is spared, making Theresa May look even less in control. I won't even go into the sex scandals rocking this corrupt, ineffectual government at the moment. Makes Trump woes look like a walk in the park. I don't know about that. All right, folks. That's from Leon of London. See you tomorrow. Vote!
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know some